Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I'd like to start out by thanking Evan for giving me a Dealer's Choice donation deck list. I love it when this happens because I just get to dig through all of the recent Legacy results and find the spiciest thing that I can. So today's deck list comes to us from Japan, and I'm probably going to pronounce this name wrong. Let me know in the comments what this is actually supposed to be. I would legitimately appreciate it. Onoue Yohai got a finish with a deck list that looked pretty much like this. I changed about 4 cards. And essentially, it's a 2023 Deadguy Ale deck list that is built around some new cards that you'll probably recognize if you play a lot of formats, but you might not recognize if you just play Legacy. So let's start with Gix. This card is hot. I was on the wrong side of this card recently in Legacy, and it was real bad for me. It's a 3-mana 3/3. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, draw a card. Now, this is a super sweet design, because it's a creature, meaning it can trigger multiple times. It's also to one of your opponents, so if you are a fan of something like EDH or CEDH, this can also be a political card. Now, there's also an endgame mana sync ability. For 7 mana, you can discard X cards, and look at the top X cards of one of your opponent's libraries. You can play land cards and cast spells from among them without paying their mana costs. So your opponent has a bunch of sweet things in their deck, a Primeval Titan, an Emrakul, some initiative cards. Just play them for free. Now, I say for free, but you've invested 7 mana into that activated ability. More realistically, a lot of times what's going to happen with Gix is you have a turn 1 or 2 Dauthi Voidwalker, a turn 2 or 3 Gix, and then your Dauthi Voidwalker hits start drawing you cards, and you kind of snowball that advantage from there. There's also Graveyard Trespasser, which is a 3/3 with Ward of discard a card, so your opponent's not getting rid of it without a 2-for-1. And whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a creature was exiled this way, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life, and it can transform into something with essentially double that ability. So this is a deck that has some ability to gain some life to offset life loss from things like Thoughtseize, Gix, and even a Castle Locthwain activation if we make it to that point in the game. Got a robust Stoneforge Mystic package, as well as an endgame Planeswalker package of the Wandering Emperor. Sort of interestingly here, this deck has supplemented its removal suite with Vanishing Verse, which allows you to exile target monocolored permanent. If you think about Legacy right now, most of the primary things you need to deal with, maybe minus Minsk and Boo, are going to be monocolored things. Your White Blue Adventurers, Seasoned Dungeoneer, Murktide Regent, Dragon Rage Channeler, yada 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 yada. Time will tell whether or not it's worth it to actually just pay 2 mana for that effect, or whether or not we should just be playing a Prismatic Ending, which can sometimes be more mana efficient. As far as changes to the deck list, I think I changed 4 cards. I believe there were 3 Wastelands in the original deck list, and just looking at the mana pips, we have a lot of black-black, we have some white-black that we need early, we need white-white as well. I took out the 3 Wastelands for, I believe, an Urborg, a 4th Scrubland, and a Silent Clearing, just to make my spells more castable. And the sideboard had a sort of Feast and Famine, and there was a sword there anyway, and I couldn't help myself. Sword of War and Peace is a card that I used to play in Death and Taxes many, many, many years ago, and I saw someone talking about it recently with Lightning Bolt and Swords to Plowshares and Prismatic Ending being sort of the primary removal spells of the format right now. In addition, there's a lot of other things floating around in those colors, such as Solitude. It seems like Sword of War and Peace might be reasonable if you also want to be playing a sword in the first place. So we're going to try that out today. As far as other interesting things in the sideboard, we do have Hushbringer here. This is a Torpor Orb effect that you can use to stop things like the initiative from happening, while also being a hate card for things like Doomsday that care about Thassa's Oracle. With that being said, let's hop into some matches here and see how this feels. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you're regular, throw me a like or a comment. Those are the easiest ways to support my content for free and help more people find this channel. Alright, let's battle. Okay, I think I will be keeping this hand. It's a little weird, I have a lot of top end here, but assuming that I'm playing against something fair or fair adjacent, Dauthi Voidwalker into Gix is like super reasonable as a starting point for a game. And even against some unfair stuff, like Dauthi Voidwalker is good early. We delvin'? We're delvin'. So here I would really like to see removal spells as draws. That's not a removal spell. Weird position. So I can choose to completely play around Wasteland and like play this and have no way to get Wastelanded off of this next turn, but doing so would take me off of a lot of super relevant cards. So I don't think I'm going that route. I think these are both going to end up being scrub lands instead. I think that's just going to be much, much safer for me in the long term. Like, if my opponent ends up dropping multiple Wastelands, it is what it is. And now it's like, do I start on the card that hates on my opponent's graveyard early, or do I try to disrupt them and keep this alive? I think given the current pace of Legacy, I want to do this. Resolved relatively quickly, but that just could mean like, hey, I've got a lightning bolt and it's not a problem. Ooh, okay, no immediate lightning bolt. That's good. Doesn't mean they don't have one. They could need to ponder first, find a land, and then lightning bolt this. But if this sticks around, my life total is pressured a lot less, and I can try to use Gix to get me towards land drops to do cool things here. Alright, are we getting bolted? Technically, no. Technically, no, we're not getting bolted. It's similarly bad, but that is what it is. I believe I am into that rather than playing any of these other cards. This can be stronger later in terms of getting rid of a Murktide region or something, but taking the immediate life total pressure off of me seems good. Like, especially since I have some things that like will potentially hurt me later on. Interesting decision point from my opponent of whether they go for a Silent Clearing or a Scrubland here. I personally would be going for a Scrubland, as it forces me to take damage off Silent Clearing every time I want to do something. Oh, that was so bad. That was so bad. Okay, what is my plan? This always just continues to get Scrubland. Or we've already gone down that road. I think I just need to hit a land drop to get to Wandering Emperor, so I think I'm going to go for Gix here. Despite the fact that, like, this is Dazeable, Force of Willable, Boltable. Just doesn't seem like this is the matchup for Sculler. I basically just want Sculler for a combo. I don't want it anywhere else. Like, I expect this to be my most boarded out card. Alright, in good news, Delver doesn't immediately flip. In bad news, Aggressive Iteration is a hell of a drug. Alright, there's another bolt. Alright, so this is exile target tapped creature, right? So I can just do it on my turn. Alright, let's pave the way for a Wandering Emperor. We got absolutely fuck me. Oh my god. I mean, this is why the Delver didn't flip. But fuck. How on earth am I just supposed to beat that many creatures? Oh man, now it's backed by Force of Will. Alright. Alright. We're so dead. We're so dead. Alright. I would like to get these Tidehollow Scullers out of my deck. I'm also not the biggest fan of Thoughtseize here, but like, some of this probably has to stay. My sideboard isn't super built for Delver. Like, that's not an option. I don't think I want to be playing a 1-2 lifelinker here. That's not an option. Canonist and Cathar Commando aren't great. Plague Engineer is good. I'll probably play this sword. It's, like, very mana inefficient to do so. But as we saw, my creatures getting obliterated by Lightning Bolt is kind of a big deal. I just need Thoughtseize as an early play with this deck. I might. Thalia feels awkward. Not bad, just awkward. I could do something that looks like this and board in the Thalias. I am, like, not the biggest conceptual fan of Thalia versus Delver. Like, my own Thalia is going to make Vanishing Worths Vanishing Verse, Sudden Edict, Source of Plowshare is worse. But I think I'm okay with leveraging that on the play. Yeah, this is totally fine. I don't know that I'm going to get to the situation where I get to kick a Tourach, but we will certainly try. As a side note, it is possible that I am supposed to consider fetching a basic plains with Marsh Flats on turn 1, just kind of blind here. Play around Stifle effects, which are picking up in popularity a little bit, but I don't think I'm super interested in doing that. So I can go for immediate removal on Dragon Rage Channeler if I'd like. Basically, no matter what I do, I can't really double spell next turn. I think since I can't really double spell next turn, I'm just going to attempt to play Thalia and make it more likely that Vanishing Verse does resolve later. Yeah. Like, it sucks that Thalia gets countered here, but having one removal spell in hand and, like, something that is going to negatively impact my life total, I think means that I just have to try to resolve Vanishing Verse. Alright, we're only taking 1 this turn. So this is, like, really so much better than it could have been. Let's draw a Plague Engineer. Let's draw a Plague Engineer. No, not Plague Engineer. We're going to attempt to get rid of Dragon Rage Channeler now rather than play out Bob, I think. Just have to do everything that I can to stop the graveyard from being a resource while taking out these creatures. Alright, nice. Now, the Delver might hit me for more than the Dragon Rage Channeler would in this turn cycle, but I, like, very, very much need to respect Murktide Regent and future Dragon Rage Channelers being larger. Alright, that's no shuffle there. I'm going to be at 15. Okay, I don't mind that at all. I think I'm willing to play out a Dark Confidant in an attempt to hit that land drop for Wandering Emperor next turn. I guess that's, like, not even going to happen, though, because my opponent has Daze. Playing out, like, a 2-1 Tourach is probably not good enough to get a Lightning Bolt from my opponent. Could have played a Tourach and then attempted to kick one next turn to bait Daze. If my opponent doesn't have a removal spell, like, this bonus card here is really good. They have a respectable amount of removal in this deck, not a high amount of removal. No shuffle. Go to 12. Is slightly scary, yeah. At least it's still technically a 1-1. Try to find answers to this stuff. Okay. The Edict is uncounterable. Would I trade Bob for Dragon Rage Channeler? If it clears the board, the answer is yes. So let's give my opponent that decision and see if they want to take it. I would absolutely not be taking it if I was in their shoes. They agree. Let's fire off a Sudden Edict. I assume Delver goes. Like, once there's a creature in the graveyard, this is just better. Just, you know, Delver with more upside at that point. Higher base stats, and it continues to fuel the graveyard for things like Murktide Regent. I'm at 7. Lightning bolts are starting to get scary. Another creature is starting to get scary. Fuck, it is a Murktide Regent. Definitely feeling the difference in, like, the tiers of our decks here. Like, I am just not able to deploy my cards at the rate that my opponent is pressuring me. Alright, well, Swords is great. Force of Will ends that game with that Murktide Regent hit. Yeah, I don't think we have what it takes to compete with Delver. At least not without dedicating a lot more sideboard slots to the matchup. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is a deck building website for Magic the Gathering that has a lot of really cool functionality. So if you are looking to store your decks online and be able to subdivide them into all sorts of folders and organizational systems, this site may be for you. In addition to just storing deck lists, you can also keep track of which cards you have by clicking nice little bubbles next to the cards. In 2023, am I supposed to keep a hand that just goes, like, turn 2, 2-1 with protection, turn 3 Jete equip? No. What about a hand that just goes Tourach and Gix? Is that still fine? Not excited about it. I don't know that I throw it back either. Chances of me getting wastelanded just went down by a lot. Ugh. Alright, let's just pass the turn here and chill. I'm definitely nervous that my opponent is just about to, like, drop a show and tell or something. Island pass, no play. A little unnerving. Opponent has lost a lot of clock just, like, sitting there and thinking. Yes. Okay, so I'm playing against some sort of blue stompy deck list, maybe with Hull Breacher, Days Undoing sort of stuff. Kind of be my guess. Tourach may end up being laughably good if that is the case. Douthie Voidwalker is just a better play, though. Douthie Voidwalker hates on the graveyard and stops a lot of those things from going there in the first place. Okay, that resolved very quickly. That might be an indication that my opponent just, like, does not have counter spells in their deck. I wonder if my deck should have pitch spells, given that I have a bunch of expensive cards that might just get stuck in my hand. I also just have, like, 2 Wandering Emperors that I've drawn both rounds so far, so, like, that's a thing. Alright, there's a third land drop from my opponent. Transmute Muddle the Mixture. Okay, you have my attention. You have found a Thassa's Oracle. Understood. So I am playing... That's an interesting draw. I can hold that up. So my opponent next turn could play the 2-mana card that lets them exile their library and play Thassa's Oracle, and then Vanishing Verse doesn't actually interact with that. That's not great for me. Wait, I just hold up Douthie Voidwalker? Counter target instant or sorcery spell? I just hold that up and play Gix this turn. Okay. Alright. I am using Douthie Voidwalker not in the way that I intended to, as of playing it last turn. But this is just going to be significantly safer until I can do something like kick a Tourach. Alright, 4th land drop. Yeah, so this is a sorcery. I'll sacrifice Douthie Voidwalker. And then I'll counter Paradigm Shift. Alright, it just occurred. Yeah, so my knowledge of Legacy just saved my butt. So we're now going to be looking for Gix to draw me a land, if possible. Alright, cool. Yes, I will pay the life. A Tide Hollow Sculler is fantastic. While this was not what I wanted to see earlier, it's definitely what I want to see now. That's awkward. That's wizard cycling that can just get another Thassa's Oracle. I mean, I still probably just take the Thassa's Oracle, because it just blocks. It forces my opponent to use their mana. Alright. Yes, you may wizard cycle. I accept this. Yep. This game's gonna spiral quickly. See if I can find a land here. This is 5 damage, 2 Gix triggers. I'll pay some life. So if I play 2 cards from this, I can still just afford to draw another one. That's great. So now I mostly know what's going on over there. We will grab Scrubland and kick it. This hopefully takes out the Curse Catcher. Or not, sorry, not the Curse Catcher. The Thassa's Oracle. Yeah, that leaves my opponent with an Aether Vial. Yeah. So I won that game specifically because I left back Douthie Voidwalker to play around the thing that would have beaten me. So, Hushbringers are pretty sweet here. So I do have, like, Thought Lash type things that I potentially have to worry about. And since I saw a Curse Catcher, my opponent might have, like, Merfolk aggressive elements as well. So I can't over-sideboard for Doomsday specifically and just leave my deck totally dead to just a pile of Lord of Atlantis or whatever. So while I could be thinking about this sort of stuff for the not the Doomsday, the Thassa's Oracle side of the deck, like, this stuff's super bad versus just Name Nemesis and Friends. I think I'm going to end up bringing in these 4 cards if I were to guess. I think I'm going to get rid of Wandering Emperor just for being very slow here. That gets me the first 2 of these. And maybe, since I'm bringing in 2 more creatures, I'll get rid of, like, 2 Graveyard Trespasser. Not a card that I hate, but I'm not overly excited about it. I want to get rid of the other one for an Aethersworn Canonist. Again, bad versus fair merfolk, good versus unfair merfolk. Minus, like, Aether Vial happening. Could also just go down this and play a Fracture to answer Aether Vial or Chalice or whatever. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. That's another out to something like a Thought Lash that gets into play if my opponent is playing that. This is fine. This won't be very good versus an aggressive merfolk hand. Like if my opponent leads on Aether Vial and then just like plays Lord or whatever, like this hand is going to be pretty bad against it because I have a decent amount of like self life loss here. Oh, well, that makes it significantly better. Let's go ahead and see what's going on over there, or alternatively, take Curse Catcher off the board. I accept. My Thoughtseize has still accomplished its job of getting a 1-for-1 trade. Second island. No creature. 4 mana is the point where I really have to be cognizant of my opponent comboing off. I'm relatively safe before then. I think I am okay just dropping a Stoneforge Mystic this turn, because I would very much like that in play before I play Hushbringer for very, very, very obvious reasons. I did not assume that was in any capacity force of willable. I think I'm just going to grab a Jitte. I already have a big dumb thing to put into play with this, and I don't think I'm using my mana immediately to activate this, although I could be wrong. Alright, that's going to go get a Thassa's Oracle. Yep. And now, like, the ideal draw would be a Thoughtseize, so that I can play Thoughtseize into Hushbringer. Okay, Vial is fine. I can answer that if I feel like I need to answer that. I probably don't need to answer it in this turn cycle regardless. I would much rather play Hushbringer this turn. Let's get in there. Opponent's at 19. This card is devastating if it resolves. I know one of my opponent's cards can play. So my Stoneforge Mystic is notably much worse now. There will presumably be waiting to pay costs on Alice. Yeah, totally fine. I've got 4 mana to work with. I can Jitte equip if I'd like. I can play Gix and just draw some cards. Can't really do anything after that this turn because of that Chalice. I can just hold up Fracture. I don't think I need to Fracture that Aether Vial. I can also just like put in Batterskull while holding up Fracture, or use Fracture to take out Aether Vial. I'm good with fetching here. I'm going to need another white source. I'm confident in that. I think I'm just going to hold up all my mana. Attack for 1 in the air. When it goes to 18, I can just Fracture this Vial so that my opponent can't use it to cheat mana. I think I'm fine with that. Yeah, I think I'm just good with that. It's just creatures entering the battlefield, right? Yeah. I would very much like a trigger when an artifact enters the battlefield. Yeah, by removing the Aether Vial, it just makes it harder for my opponent to do some sort of like Brazen Borrower, bounce Hushbringer, play 2 other spells in the same turn cycle, kill me, shenanigans. End of turn. I will produce a Batterskull. Will offset a very good amount of life loss that I'm pretty likely to accrue here. Gix. Draw 3 cards is good, right? Put that for black. Draw 3 cards. Alright. Stuff is just resolving. Yeah, that's 6 damage. I gain 5 life. Absolutely willing to Ancestral here. Wrong. Play Plains, play Douthie Voidwalker as Urborg. Seems reasonable. I guess Douthie Voidwalker in some capacities does help my opponent. Yeah, sure, that's fine. I don't mind that. Like, this just happens pre-combat next turn. A Riptide Lab is fine. Well, I guess if my opponent has another one of these, the Plague Engineer play does become slightly awkward. Okay, it doesn't matter. We've picked up the win here. GG. Alright, I will be keeping this opening hand here. I have like a very good disruptive hand that can punch a hole for some of this other stuff. And basically I'm just hoping this does not get stifled. Please don't stifle me. Okay, did not get stifled. Let's figure out what's going on. Painter. This is awkward. I probably have to take the Painter. I just can't let my opponent have like this double red elemental blast situation unchecked. Really awkward. Really awkward. Just like this can find them a grindstone. They can have both pieces in the graveyard, or this can get them some other very good stuff. Might be better to take Goblin Engineer and not let them do shenanigans. Thoughtseize them again next turn. Take a red elemental blast. And then let them like take out one of my lands or whatever. You got the Painter. I also just have a decent number of removal spells that I can just draw. What if I play Dark Confidant? Is that good enough to red elemental blast? Like, if I leave Painter in play, my opponent does have the line of just red elemental blast 2 of my lands. That's pretty scary. Let's try this and see if we can get a red elemental blast on this. And go from there. Yeah. That is acceptable. And very scary. There's only 2 of those in most configurations of the deck right now. I need to place the fear in my opponent. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to tap a Plains. I'm going to untap that. Plant the idea that I have a removal spell. And now I'm going to cast a Thoughtseize. Alright, my opponent red elemental blasts a land. That's fine. Now I'll float a mana. Thoughtseize. Take their fury. I'm now going to fetch, grab a new basic Plains, and just pass the turn. I am dead if they just go for it. I'm hoping they draw something that makes it not worth it for them to go for it. Oh fuck, they didn't. So now they just activate this on my upkeep, and I die. Okay, they're gonna go for it now. Alright. Fold out. This is monocolored. No, this is this one is the monocolored one. This is reasonable here. Sword of War and Peace isn't crazy. Plague Engineer on Goblin isn't crazy. Hushbringer to stop Fury is not crazy. Our Commando is not crazy. I'm going to have a decent number of playable cards. I don't think I'm into Surgical Extraction here. I'm like halfway through writing a Patreon article right now talking about like sideboarding against Painter and how it can be really frustrating because I have so many disparate plans. I don't think I need Surgical. Like, I have Graveyard Trespasser. That is relatively reasonable here. Hollow Sculler doesn't feel great against Fury. I think I'm not going to play those. I think that's going to get me Fracture and 2 Cathar Commando as a starting point. I think I am willing to go down a Wandering Emperor for a Plague Engineer. I don't know, this is pretty good when my opponent is on the mid-rangey plan. Sword of War and Peace also quite good against the mid-rangey plan. I don't know that I want a 4th piece of equipment. I might rather have a split like this than 2 of these. There's like these Hushbringers that can stop Fury. Well, it changes what Fury does, more accurately. Turns it into a pitch cast 3/3 double striker rather than a removal spell. But my Stoneforge package matters a decent amount as the game goes on. Tourach's not great. I'm gonna run this like this, and then I'll reevaluate if I get to go to another game. Unexciting, but probably a keep. Just felt kind of light on opening plays that I'm a big fan of. Like, wonder if I should have some Chrome Mox or something like that in this deck. I am going to start on a good old Stoneforge Mystic here. It does get bolted a decent portion of the time. I don't know which of these I'm more interested in. I think my Stoneforge is going to get killed, so I don't want one of these two. I'm just going to pick up Jete here. I think if it was 1 or 2 turns later, I would just get Sword of War and Peace instead. but this is currently my turn 4 plan in a lot of worlds. Yeah, this is fine. Ooh, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Painter's Servant occurs. I believe it is more important to take out this Urza Saga than the Painter. Very bad draw. So, I guess I should technically fetch first. It's not going to matter most of the time, but I should do that. We're going to take out Cathar Commando, set my opponent back on mana, and then hope that, like, Gix into Jitte ends up beating them. Yeah, 1 damage is a-okay with me. And we'll see when I end up using this Bojuka Bog. Table's pretty good here. That is interesting. Probably want to use the Bojuka Bog next turn. I can play out a Jitte and just hold up Cathar Commando. Flash in Cathar Commando. I can also just play Gix as a 3-3, so I have something that winds up well versus the Shaman token in combat. I don't hate that. I think Bojuka Bog's Exile clause is going to be more important than the fact that this is a tapped land. We'll see, though. When it has discarded a Fury, it can just die to Grindstone activate. And I will. I need to hold up mana for the rest of the game and see if my opponent goes for it. Oh, fuck. That probably means that they have protection if they're willing to just throw that away. Okay. I accept this. I need them to not go for it, because then Cathar Commando becomes a more real thing. Or if they go for it on my upkeep instead, that's great for me. Ooh. I'm now in a situation where I very much wish they'd played Bojuka Bog last turn, because now I need 5 mana. Alright. Need to make the land drop here. Yeah, they're gonna go for it end of turn. They are going to Grindstone target me. I think the way that I want to do this is exile the Painter, which is currently blue, so it is a monocolored permanent. Nice. And I get a Tourach Mild. Now the hope is that I can use Cathar Commando and Jitte to kind of clean up the onboard stuff. See if I get to do that. Rude. Not unexpected, given Taiga. I think that beats me now. Because, like, previously, I was only dealing with 4 onboard power. But I don't think I can reasonably beat this 6 onboard power, given how my mana looks right now. Oh, and there's more? So that just finds a Painter. And then next turn, it's Grindstone activate in response, Engineer in Painter, and I'm just dead that way too. I cannot imagine the draw that gets me out of this. Reflection of Kikijiki copies this, makes another one. I think I can get that out of graveyard. Given that I am 9 life, I'm just losing to this hamster. I am fine conceding here. GG's. Yeah, round 4 opening hand looks great. All these hands that have Thoughtseize feel so much better than the ones that don't. Maybe I should be playing a couple of Inquisition of Kozilek or something like that. Just some other generic turn 1 play. Gix. I could be playing against a Wasteland deck here. Could be playing against Elves here. If this gets Wastelanded, it's super awkward for me to have a basic anyway. I think I'm just going to fetch a Scrubland here. Despite the fact that it may, like, slow me down in the immediate future. Like, I'm already bad against Wasteland, and I will just make myself worse against Wasteland by fetching a basic. Okay. Understood. I have a very clear picture of what's going on over here. So, Rotation Dark Depths represents both sides of a combo with Sylvan Safekeeper to get around my Sudden Edict. This Minsk and Boo is going to be hard for me to beat, but I can take it next turn. But then Swords to Plowshares happens. So I can take Sylvan Safekeeper, so a Merit Lodge never ends up being relevant. That's many turns away anyway. And just take Swords to Plowshares and get Cauldron and try to turbo my opponent out. I think I'm going to take Swords to Plowshares, let my opponent keep the Merit Lodge type stuff, and assume that I can beat a Minsk and Boo with my normal resources. Alright, there's their draw for turn. Good news is they probably think that I have Wasteland in my deck. So they're going to be playing around it by holding up crop rotation. So accordingly, I can now force some decisions with this. Play the Sculler. And if my opponent wants to crop rotation for Thespian stage, this is their moment to do so. Alright, they will. Alright, there is the stage. And I think I take the Safekeeper so that I'm better at playing around the Edict in the short term. That's fine. That's not fine. That's very much not fine. Mouthy Voidwalker, not really what I'm looking for here. I went from, like, I can probably just strand this in your hand for a while to, like, I am in very immediate mortal danger. Like, I wanted to have time to deploy Gix, draw a couple more cards, and assume that I could leverage those to just win me the game. The good news is, if my opponent taps out for Minsk and Boo on their turn, I can kill it with Cauldron without telegraphing Cauldron. I just have to get a Batterskull here, though. Like, Jitte is just not reasonable with the 2 lands that I have. Alright, my opponent takes some damage off library, which puts me in a bad spot. I need a little more mana here than what I'm working with. Alright, so there's the Minsk and Boo. I have the resources to pretty easily beat this, but I need more mana. Or just naturally drawing a Swords to Plowshares would also be pretty cool. Thoughtseize doesn't take that. Not the correct timing for that card. Alright. Put this in. And see whether my opponent would rather keep the Hamster or the Minsk and Boo. I'm not willing to offer them their Sylvan Safekeeper back. Okay. That is a choice. So they could just block, take 1 on the Minsk and Boo, make another Hamster at their upkeep, and end up in the exact same position again. So that feels wrong to me. Being constrained on mana here is so rough, because, like, I was trying to rely on Gix to just draw me the cards necessary to find the ability to play more things. Okay. I have to kind of believe in the top of the deck here, huh? I have to Edict them, attack them for 8, and hope to kill them through Merit Lodge next turn. Somehow. Is there a way where this works better if I Batterskull? Probably not. Yeah, I think the Batterskull lines are just worse. I'll be on, like, Swords, Vanishing Verse, Raucous, Swords to Plowshares, Sudden Edict as outs. There might be more. That's what comes to mind immediately. Oh, there's interaction. Oh, there's crop rotation. That just makes a Dark Depths now. I mean, yeah. So that makes a 2020. And that should pretty much do it. Opponent did not block the thing that would have exiled their creature, unfortunately. And now I am dead. GG. Very interesting game. There's a lot of ways to play that one. Like, the Tidehollow Scholar not being a true discard spell made the initial opening hand very awkward for me. Like, it's possible with my second discard choice, I should have just taken the Minsk and Boo, let them have the Sylvan Safekeeper, but I would have still just run into the same problem and probably lost in a different capacity, where I just don't have the second removal spell that I needed. Okay. I have a bunch of medium cards that I can bring in. Without Wasteland, I'm not interested in surgicaling the lands. I'm not interested in Canonist. Hushbringer technically blocks, but I don't think I want to go that route. Fracture's okay. It can hit Minsk and Boo as well as Sylvan Library. Our Commando and Thalia are both kind of medium. So this doesn't really feel like a Jitte matchup. Like, it can technically do stuff, but I'm probably going to go down on Jitte and maybe even down on Stoneforge. Graveyard Trespasser isn't super necessary here. I can probably go down a couple of those. That gets me Fracture. I think I'll play Plague Engineer as something that can clean up Sylvan Safekeeper. I think I'm interested in more of those. And then I don't know that I'm interested in Thalia because I want this to remain costing 1. I'm also just a little choked on mana. Like, 21 mana sources is not feeling like enough when I have, like, 4-drops and Batter Skulls and such in my deck. Well, maybe I'm just doing a bad job of drawing Dark Confidant. Maybe that's on me. And feels unexciting to me. Like, Thoughtseize is great early. Swords to Plowshares is very reasonable in the matchup. The issue with the hand is that I'm just, like, not doing anything unfair. Like, this is a highly interactive hand that just doesn't win the game very quickly. Oh, nice. Goodbye, Minsk and Boo. We just took out the strongest card from my opponent's hand. Their hand's pretty awkward in terms of, like, colors and mana sources and whatnot. Although, I guess multiple flagstones kind of fixes that. Yeah, this is fine. I'd Hollow Sculler will be played into Swords to Plowshares. I think I'm good with that. Let's just go ahead and pass the turn. Alright, expected flagstones is expected. And now we'll go ahead and fire off a Tide Hollow Sculler. Dismiss that. And we may see something sort of interesting happen here. We don't. So I don't really want to take Swords to Plowshares, but if I take any other card, my opponent just removes this creature immediately. So that means I have to take Swords to Plowshares. Now, in the hypothetical world where my opponent did cast Swords to Plowshares in response to this trigger, I would have gotten to take a card forever. Because this is old templating, and these are 2 separate triggers. Yeah, there's your Sylvan Library. Like to draw something better than Plague Engineer to do this turn. Hell yeah. Let's attack for 2, and I should be keeping more faithful track of what's in my opponent's hand over there. They're at 18. And I do not want to show Arrakis for as long as possible. That's just, like, not something that I want my opponent to know that I have until it's like, totally necessary. I would be pretty happy if Plague Engineer ends up getting to kill a Dryad Arbor, a Sylvan Safekeeper, or whatever. Pretty good chance it doesn't. Glacial Chasm also pretty good with flagstones, historically speaking. Damn. Library's good, folks. Okay, we're going to see a Legend Ruling of Flagstones. My opponent gets a Plains card, not a basic Plains, but a Plains card. That'll be a little bit of mana fixing. Sure. A Fair Green Sun. Fair Green Sun. Get a 1/1. Not a 1/1. But it is something that is going to eat it to this Swords to Plowshares. Just so I can stay mana efficient here. Alright. Let's crash in for my 2 points of damage. We'll drop my opponent to 15. And I think it's a Sylvan Safekeeper's a human. Human wizard. I could also hamster this up. Actually. That's less necessary while I have Caracas, but if my opponent has Wasteland for my Caracas as well, it would be pretty devastating to not have Minsk and Boo preemptively answered. I'm gonna play Afraid. Doesn't matter. So now my opponent gets the previous Swords to Plowshares back, which they use to answer Plague Engineer. Yeah, Tide Hollow Sculler. Maybe not keeping up with Fire Design. My opponent's also probably in the situation that they can take a little bit of extra damage here. Yeah, that's not good. We're probably at crack silent clearing time if I miss on my draw, which I did. Take a redraw. So I am still technically the aggressor, but my opponent's in a real good situation now. To play a Bob. Notably not... okay. No, it's fine. Notably, Knight of the Reliquary sacrifices a forest or plains, whereas Elvish Reclaimer sacrifices anything, so there is kind of a key differential between those two cards. But Knight of the Reliquary can obliterate my lands over the course of the next couple of turns, or otherwise invalidate my combat with something like Maze of Ith. Glacial Chasm's been used already, so that's hopefully not coming back. Okay. Sylvan Safekeeper punish for me playing around Minsc and Boo more. Indeed. Dark Depths and Stage immediately. Sure. Yeah, so I played around Minsc and Boo plus Wasteland rather than just playing around Sylvan Safekeeper. Was perhaps wrong. I am technically at 21. I'd like to find a secondary removal spell here. Nope. So I try to kill this. My opponent sacrifices Flagstones, gives that protection, and I'm dead. Yeah, I tried to play safer around Minsc and Boo, a card that would have carried the game, and I lost to the traditional combo. Okay, not enough mana. Still not really enough mana, but I'm probably keeping this one. I haven't played against this player in a hot minute. I think the last time they were on like a Blood Moon deck is like really awkward for me here. I have like black and like white cards in hand. If I get mooned, I fetch the basic. Okay, it's Trinisphere. That's bad for me. Again, I said like still not enough mana. Now enough mana. But my opponent will get to deploy the first threat here. So a lot of what this game is going to come down to is like, can my opponent answer to Stoneforge Mystics? Ooh, Spirit Guide is going to let them cast something like maybe a Chandra or a Caves of Chaos Adventurer more likely. Yeah. I am not going to be great at taking the initiative here. I don't think I fetch immediately. I still kind of want more land. Am I willing to take 7? I think I'm willing to take 7. I think I just need to play a Stoneforge Mystic so that I can attack, take the initiative, and then attempt to hold it. It's a little greedy, but given how constrained I am going to be on mana for this game, getting an extra land drop off of Secret Entrance feels pretty huge. But I will just take the Cauldron because it rumbles in combat the best. We're mainly hoping to dodge Fury here. Opponent could have Bonecrusher Giant in their deck. Alright, they are going to the Forge. Furnace normally is not going to do a lot against my deck, but here, like in this exact circumstance where I have the Source of Plowshares that I'd like to play in addition to a 2-drop, it was really brutal. See how bad the Caves of Chaos Adventurer trigger is. Mountain is fine. That's not a big deal. Like, they might not even want to play Mountain. I'm at 12. Oh. Please don't be another Caves of Chaos Adventurer. It is a Shatter Skull Smashing, so I'm not going to be able to take the initiative back. Rough. So the plan is just pass the turn and Wandering Emperor Caves of Chaos Adventurer in combat, I think. I'll let them look at one more card, but I will put a Planeswalker into play, which is huge. Ugh, margins are so tight here. Another land drop. Could see a Rabble Master. See a Blood Moon. Is Wandering Emperor still to play? Because I can float black. Vanishing Verse. No, I can't. I can't do two things in this turn. Yeah, Wandering Emperor is still to play then. A little unfortunate. Double basic planes coming in clutch though. So, in response to that trigger, go ahead and do this. This gets to take out that creature. And this life is very much not irrelevant here. They've exiled the Caves of Chaos Adventurer, which there's no way they can realistically pay for. They would have to have, what, like Ancient Tomb double Spirit Guide or something. So I need to play something that can take the initiative back. I guess means dropping a Stoneforge Mystic. Yes, I'll pick up a Batterskull as something that I can potentially hard cast next turn. If I minus this, it's much worse versus Fury. But I think I'm just taking another body here. I am scared. I would also really like another land so that I can activate Stoneforge Mystic while also playing Swords to Plowshares. I get it some portion of the time. I don't know, the Dead 3, relatively speaking, is a disaster. Like, this can find a Fury, for example, taking out both of these creatures, and I think I can't recover from that. Oh, a Fury. I think at this point I'm more or less just ready to throw in the towel. Like, I can Swords to Plowshares one of these, and then the other one is basically going to take out this game. I'm going to take another draw step just to make sure I'm not wrong. But, like, that Trinosphere bought my opponent, I think, just enough time for a win. Alright, is there any world in which playing Batterskull just saves me? Not really. Have to block this. Take 5, go to 4. Trap will be coming. Okay, there is potentially an out. Follows me, I think, drawing basic swamp as my next draw. I can take another land. I'm playing towards buy a turn with Batterskull, draw swamp, Vanishing Verse 1, Swords to Plowshares the other. Could have just Swords to Plowshared Fury in this turn cycle and drawn towards Vanishing Versing this. The opponent can just have another Fury here, and nothing matters. I also just like can't beat 2 turns worth of the initiative, and I don't really know how I take the initiative back. Ancient Tomb is whatever. Let's throw this in front of the bus and get lucky. I'm also just not going to beat this thing like just attacking and drawing my opponent cards. Alright, I'm not beating that now. Absolutely not. Okay. So I hate Sculler here. I think I dislike Thoughtseize. It can take some very specific cards that are problems, but my opponent is a Chalice deck that is rapidly pressuring my life total. I think these are probably going to stay out. I'm not a fan. I think Tourach is probably too slow here. I have better things to do at higher mana totals. Plague Engineers for Goblin is good. The Thar Commando is reasonable for Blood Moon. Fracture is okay if I've fetched appropriately ahead of time. I can play Hushbringer for Fury and Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Like, Thalia and Sword of War and Peace are technically playable as well. I'm just so slow in comparison to my opponent's deck. I also need both my colors as basics to fully operate. How many Gixes do I actually want? Like, 3/3 body is relevant, the card draw is relevant. Save one of those. I think I'm going to keep some number of Thoughtseizes on the play. Let's do this. Let's do protection against my opponent's deck. Go down one more Gix here. This is an unexciting but very reasonable opening hand that is going to be very sturdy. We'll lead on Arid Mesa over Marsh Flats so that this can fetch a swamp or a plains later as I need. Alright, opponent's on 7. Basic mountain. And to pass the turn, that's fine. That's not really what I want, but it is what it is. Grab a basic, and I will just attempt a Stoneforge Mystic. Grab Cauldron. I think I'll still grab the Cauldron and just threaten this. If this gets stuck in my hand, it gets stuck in my hand. If my opponent has Dead Gone. Yep. Alright, there's Ancient Tomb. Blood Moon's fine. I can operate under that currently. I can Vanishing Verse it if I need to. Put this on Goblin. And see where this goes. I'm going to be much worse at double spelling moving forward. Spirit Guide is fine. And Vanishing Verse Blood Moon and then play this. Also Vanishing Verse Blood Moon and then Swords to Plowshares. I think I'm just kind of killing here for the turn cycle. I don't want to trade Plague Engineer for Simian Spirit Guide. Yeah, I'm happy enough taking 2 here. Go to 17. End of turn. Take out the Blood Moon. I think I'm actually fine just now removing that, given that I have another removal spell here. Ooh, I like that. I'll put my opponent to 18. Drop a Castle Locktwain. I believe I just play the Hushbringer immediately. This is 3 and tapping this to activate, so I can't activate this within this turn cycle. Like, I've stopped initiative creatures and Fury from mattering in the short term. I have Legion Warboss and Goblin Rabble Master checked. It's pretty good. Alright, I will respond to that. Grab another Plains so that Wandering Emperor can be live. And we're chilling. Bam. Opponent goes to 15. I will Thoughtseize you. I will still just take the Fury. The only relevant card in your hand. I'll pass the turn. Flash Planeswalker. Make a Samurai. Create a larger Vigilance creature. Battle. Brings opponent to 9 when everything's said and done. Play Graveyard Trespasser. I think we're outside of the range where a giant Shatterskull Smashing swings this game. Alright, cool. Thoughtseize on the draw is pretty rough. I probably don't want it. It's probably just too slow there. I probably just need other interaction and just raw bodies. Stealthy Voidwalkers are also a thing that just don't block. Playing Thalia alongside Wandering Emperor is kind of awkward, but I might just want straight up some first strike bodies here, and some bodies that can be played off a single mana pip. So, like Tourach as well. By that logic, they're just things that trade with early creatures and can maybe pick up a Jitte. I don't think I'm overly excited about the Stealthy Voidwalkers. Like, staying alive is so much more important than killing my opponent here. Because if I make it to the later turns, my stuff's just good. Bring these back in. I don't know, I could still play Thoughtseize. It can take such powerful cards, but I think it's more about manipulating the board here. This, in theory, has both of my basic lands. It's not the best versus a turn 1 creature, but it's pretty good against a fast Blood Moon. Turn 1 Blood Moon's still awkward. Did he? Getting mooned? Getting mooned. I can still play a Stoneforge Mystic game, and I've drawn, or I've put like extra copies of like Thalia into my deck. This is not the end of the world. I don't think I'm going to show my opponent my basic on turn 1. Go ahead and do that. My opponent will still need like a Deadguy or something to answer this Stoneforge. Stoneforge is probably picking up Batterskull as the castable card here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I just want to be able to cast that on 5 mana if Stoneforge eats a Deadguy. Oh, which it didn't immediately. That's real good. Opponent took the Blood Moon Gambit and was not rewarded. They can still have Fury. They do. Pitching a second Blood Moon. But I have 4 of the 5 land drops required to just play a Batterskull. So this is not the end of the world for me. I am on 0 currently castable spells, but not feeling that bad about it. I have 3 basics that I can draw. My opponent is maybe not doing a super meaningful play this turn, outside of like a Chalice of the Void, which currently doesn't do anything. That is a Bojuka Bog. Not super relevant here. Play it untapped. Let's see if my opponent hits more land drops. If they don't, Batterskull is a slow and steady way to potentially try and take over this game. Now, Abrade type cards can happen, but if they don't happen right now, I can just hold up 3 mana to bounce this Batterskull. Alright, there is a Chrome Mox. My opponent should be in business. There's a Bone Crusher Giant. I mean, I'll be attacking. And we'll see if my opponent wants to trade. They do not want to trade. There's another land drop from me. And I'm passing the turn. Feels like a play pattern. A much older Legacy format. Nice. This is so incredibly good. Yeah. Let's do it. Let the record show that what I'm about to do is not the correct play. Objectively speaking, this is wrong. However, this is what the people came here to see, right? The reason this is wrong is because it's so incredibly bad versus a dead gone bouncing this germ token here. But they didn't have it. Oop. I miss doing that so much. Fury is fine. Did that pitch? Ooh. That takes out my Stoneforge Mystic. I will attempt to murder my opponent. Things can still go wrong here. Oh, nope. Sword of War and Peace trigger is going to do it. And that'll be a 2-3 finish in the league. Alright. You know what I'm going to say. Overall thoughts on the deck list. This is very fun. I really enjoy playing decks in this fashion. However, I believe that one of a couple things needs to happen, and you've got some wiggle room here. I either believe you need roughly 2 more lands, a couple of Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond type cards that allow you to accelerate some stuff out, or you need to give up and shove the curve closer to this direction. There were so many times, not counting this Blood Moon stuff at the end of the game here, but there were so many times throughout this league where I had really great resources and just not the ability to deploy them. The original version of this deck list had 3 Wastelands, and I can't imagine playing this where I was like willingly taking away my mana sources. That's just no good here. Between the equipment, the Planeswalkers, like Gix activations, technically Stoneforge activations, extra cards off Dark Confidant, like, there's so many things that you can invest mana into. I think you need just a little bit more here. As far as some more nuanced takes about the mana base, I don't know if Bojuka Bog is playable with this many, like, 3 and 4 drops in the deck list. I understand wanting a way to just kind of nuke the graveyard in game 1, but I imagine the Bojuka Bog did me more harm than good in this league. You could maybe play Silent Clearing. You could maybe play the white-black fast land. I think it's Concealed Courtyard. I don't remember exactly. As far as the sideboard goes, I feel like I had okay options in every matchup except one, and that was Blue-Red Delver. And if I don't feel like I have good sideboard options versus Blue-Red Delver, that's probably a bad sign. So if I were going to revisit this sideboard, I would maybe be thinking about some sort of Path to Exile type removal, or maybe a Prismatic Ending, maybe changing some Graveyard Hate to Leyline of the Void so I can bring those in there, although that's a little rough with Dark Confidant. Those are going to be the sorts of things that I'm thinking about. Overall, this one gets a thumbs up from me in terms of fun and potential, but a thumbs down from me in terms of the build as it stands exactly right now. Sword of War and Peace, you did your thing in the last round, and I'm proud of you. Good boy, Sword of War and Peace. On that note, I hope you have a great rest of the day, folks. Please consider leaving me a like or a comment on the way out, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!